Hi everyone, so I'm Ryan. I founded Levitate last spring. My last job, weirdly, was at M&C Saatchi, just over, get the direction wrong, but just over there. So this is quite a change. What I found is all the way through that career, I kind of loved it. I loved the people, sort of loved the stress, even like the cancelled weekends and late nights, maybe slightly less so. But did find it very, very stressful, and I kind of struggled with it a bit. And meditation and mindfulness was sort of something that I had tried many things, but they were one of the things that really worked. And the more into it I got, the more I thought, I kind of want to share this. So anyway, let's get into it. Living is stressful, and then you die. It might depress you a little bit to think like this, so maybe don't. But life is like one long series of problems, really, like little challenges, big ones, ones that you kind of grow through and ones that kind of hurt a little bit on the way through. Often they're one and the same. And so it's a long series of sort of problems that you need to overcome. And sort of when looked at like that, we can try to design the perfect life, or a sort of one that kind of works for us. So maybe you're a person who eats like half an avocado and has some lemon water, if you're very into your wellness at 7:30 a.m., then you go for a run, you find the perfect job that's only 3 days a week and like allows long lunch breaks or whatever it is. You're still going to occasionally be let down by people, occasionally have to run for a bus, and your health won't always be, amazing. So we can't really stop the problems. They're just going to kind of keep on coming. I'll call them challenges if you're an optimist. What we can do is change our relationship with them. Sounds a little bit kind of like a Jedi mind trick. It's really not, but same problem, different kind of relationship with it. So we're going to try and get there today. And the world, as we know, it's volatile and uncertain and complex and ambiguous, yes. It's coming at you, kind of constantly, and with our phones and everything else, it can feel like it just never stops. So there's a really good reason for kind of getting into this. Think of some of your, like worst days when you kind of feel like you're in, kind of meltdown mode, just want to scream at, your colleague, best friend, mum, the bus conductor, whoever it is that's kind of pissing you off. It can quickly kind of spiral from a little kind of sense that something's not quite right to just full-on existential, what the hell am I doing with my life? And it's often at that moment that you finally buy yourself a tuna sandwich or whatever you like. And suddenly all of those like epic kind of existential worries just kind of go away and you realize you were hungry. We're really quite poor at reading our own bodily signals. Our minds are so distracted that often we're up here and not really paying any attention to the rest. So our brains really don't differentiate whether it's a tuna sandwich that we need, or our lives are in peril, or it's just a slightly kind of disconcerting look we're getting from our boss or the crowd while we're presenting, whatever it is. So we kind of very easily tip into like fight and flight. And we've all experienced that, countless times in our lives. And so, kind of what can we do about it? I just want you to imaginatively picture yourself right now. Close your eyes if it'll help. You're sort of somewhere in the like Central American mesa, kind of rainforest circa 10,000 years ago. You're carrying water back to your little group of, like family group, the village. And all of a sudden, you hear the growl or roar or hiss. No one quite knows what sound the saber-toothed tiger made. But before you've had a chance for the thought to go through your mind, there's a saber-toothed tiger. Oh my God, I'm going to have to run or fight it, or maybe I won't make it through. There's a chain reaction happening in your body. So your blood is starting to thicken, your sort of platelets start to plump up. the blood pressure goes way up. It starts doing strange things. The circulation to your sort of main organs goes right down, and instead the blood's flowing to your hands, your legs, your extremities, basically. All really useful if you're going to have to fight this tiger or run for your life. Your insulin production is dropping, and your blood sugar is spiking. Your cortisol, the stress hormone, adrenaline, is pumping through your system. I could go on and bore you with the number of things that are going on, but suffice to say that you can open your eyes when you like. So, your immune system is really suppressed because it's just not essential in that moment. Reproductive system totally shut off. Growth hormone shut off. Digestive system shut down. Now, all really, really useful, like I say, when you're about to do battle or run for your life, but kind of less useful when it is just that slightly, kind of hesitant look from your boss or partner. You're worried you might be sort of straying into, territory of getting a disapproving, look or talking to or whatever. We really don't differentiate between the two. That in itself wouldn't so much be a problem, other than we all know it's bloody uncomfortable when this sort of chain reaction's happening in your body, and it's annoying to have stomach kind of rumbling, and it's for no other reason than nerves. But it starts to be a problem when you're stressed out, kind of long term. Sort of, I'm going to use the wrong word, longitudinally. When it's not just a moment that you're going to fight for your life, it's sort of it's days, weeks, months, years of sort of living in a stressed out condition, because then a lot of these sort of slightly smaller, uncomfortable things become really quite chronic. So it's worth doing something about. But long term, it's kind of ruinous. You view it as the seed of illness. A lot of doctors have started talking about it in that way. So seed of increased risk of heart attack, stroke, addictions, cancer, diabetes, anxiety, depression. Long-term stress is kind of terrible for you. So what can we do about it? I want you just to think of the last time that you were a little bit uncomfortable, that a need wasn't met. You can think of stress as just a need for safety, or a need for food to be in your belly, or for psychological security not being met. Perhaps you rushed to a restaurant, got there early, your friend got there late. Perhaps it's something a little bit bigger than that. You let yourself down in some way, you were angry. Don't go too deep, it's not therapy. But I just want you to kind of get clear on that emotion, where it is in your body, what it feels like, if you're able to kind of remember back to that. And then just take a long, slow, deep breath in through your nose. It's the count of 4. And hold it for 4, 3, 2, 1. And breathe out for the count of 4, seeing how slowly you can go. Just paying attention to the physical sensation of breathing, and hold it out for 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can breathe normally. It's normally when someone kind of takes a deep gasp for breath because I was doing it too slowly. So that was 16 seconds for what it's worth. Open your eyes. That has been taught by the guy who taught me, a guy called David, to the Irish Garda, the Dutch Special Forces, the US Navy SEALs, several NBA winning teams in the States, if that means anything to you. A lot of people who have incredibly sort of high stress environments they're working in, feels a little bit funny, kind of taking that. And I should say, and that was a meditation. That was just a short one. A meditation is only more of those moments strung together. I'll tell you why that is. I can almost guarantee you weren't thinking about the emotion, the feeling I just asked you to think about. You were following instructions. You were kind of wondering when you were going to take your next breath. how slowly the teacher was going to talk. You weren't in whatever it was that had been concerning you. So it's a very kind of quick kind of pattern interrupt. Whether we imagine the way we felt or whether we're feeling it right now, the physiology is the same. We can literally just put in a breath. And we're not in the future worrying about what's to come. We're not in the past worrying about what's already happened. We're just right here. Now, that is the difference between being mindful or not being mindful. It's whether you're kind of in the moment you're actually in. So the reason that's sort of taught to soldiers and NBA winning teams and the rest of it is, because they can actually use it. The soldiers call it tactical breathing. I think the US Navy SEALs, but they're doing exactly that, just a breath. And it could be the difference between, friendly fire, shooting civilians, etc. So it's a really, really powerful tool. If you think of, your body, we all know that we can, train our bodies and get into great, kind of maybe not Olympic shape, but it's possible to change your body shape. And if we don't do it, it's not because it's impossible. It's because many other reasons. But when it comes to our minds, we tend to behave like our minds are sort of like a fixed quantity. So I am the same guy that I've been perhaps since I was 4 years old, when my sort of consciousness set in a particular mold, and that's just who I am. What we found out more recently is that that's absolutely not true. The neuroplasticity, I think you may all have heard of, means that until the day we die, we can form new neurons, new neural pathways. We can grow new brain cells, essentially. And by training our brains like we train our bodies, we can change their structure and function, just like we can our bodies. Sorry to quote Socrates, but he apparently said an unexamined life is not worth living. The reason I kind of use this quote is because for anything to actually matter to us, it needs to appear in our consciousness. So it might matter to you that there's an earthquake on the other side of the world, but it can't matter to you if you don't know it happened. And what we're doing with meditation is essentially using it as a tool to explore our consciousness in more detail. So what we're aiming to do is to kind of tease out the nuances of why you feel a particular way, why your mind works a particular way, why you tend to react to a certain sort of situation in a particular way. And let's say you've got an itchy knee all of a sudden. All of us are very used to kind of immediately scratching that. But that itch has appeared in our consciousness, just like the thoughts that we're having right now, or our sort of, emotions, everything we can see and perceive is right there. And so what we want to do is not sort of escape anywhere else. We want to kind of get a better understanding of what's going on inside our own minds. In one study, it was proved that meditating for 8 weeks, I'm going to have to look at my phone, I think they did it for 20 minutes a day, mindfulness-based stress reduction program, shrunk people's amygdala. It's like a sort of somewhat almond-shaped bit of your brain, very close to the brain stem. People call it the lizard brain. It's what deals with fight and flight. It's like the very base emotion center of fear, anxiety, anger, all of those sort of very sort of primal, useful emotions that are probably a little bit too active in our minds a lot of the time. And so shrinking that is a good thing. Reduces cortisol levels in your blood. That's the stress hormone. It increases activity in your prefrontal cortex. You think of that as the sort of executive center of your brain. It's kind of what differentiates us from the great apes. It's just much more developed than any other species. And it's what we use to make decisions, to be creative, to do some of the higher order reasoning. 12 minutes a day of meditation or mindfulness practice, practiced over 12 for 8 weeks, increase the immortality enzyme, telomerase as it's called, by 43%. It's insane. So at some point it will be prescribed as a beauty treatment if it's not already being. Oh, and it reduces anxiety and depression. So let's get into the actual practice of it. Again, let's just close our eyes. This is something I learned at the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, which is sort of spun out of Google's headquarters, and they now teach mindfulness to corporates around the world. I want you all to just firstly take a nice, slow, deep breath, just seeing how deep you can send it. And let that go. And on your next breath, just notice how your body is feeling right now. And let that go. And then on the third and final breath, just ask yourself silently, what's important right now? And you can breathe normally, open your eyes. Now, I'm hoping that when we do that, you're feeling a little bit calmer, or rather, you feel a little bit calmer now than you did just before the 3 breaths. I mean, in a way, we'd feel calmer if we just sat in silence or listened to some sort of, new agey music or whatever. But that's a little practice that you can kind of apply, during your working day. So just before hitting the nuclear button on that email that's going to scorch the village, just before putting your hand on, or as you do, hand on the door handle as you're going to step into the meeting room for a meeting you're slightly dreading. You've probably got time to take 3 breaths, and you don't even need to close your eyes. So you can kind of mostly avoid funny looks from your colleagues. But what we're trying to do is just kind of go, what our brains do is we're very, very good at imagining the future. We often get it very wrong as well when we're sort of predicting it, but we imagine a world that doesn't exist and then we're able to work towards it. That's incredible. But and likewise, we're able to sort of go way back in our memory and pull things out, remember sensations and the rest of it. But the issue is we're particularly awful at just staying in the moment we're actually in. You'd flip it and say, sort of all the animals, if you took a cat, it's probably, I don't know, I'm not a cat psychologist, but very good at being in the moment, noticing that it's hungry, wants to hunt, playful, wants to play. We're singularly bad at it. So I'm going to use the remainder of the session to kind of guide you in a meditation. Call it mindfulness if the word meditation kind of sends you to gurus in India somewhere. But it's all the same family. In a way, we don't need any special equipment. If you sort of set up a situation where the only time you can meditate is when you've got your sort of little sage thing, burning away in the corner and Tibetan gongs gonging away, and you're on your special cushion, then you're going to find 1,000,001 reasons not to do it, and it's not going to be useful for any other part of your life, really. So get comfy nonetheless, because being uncomfortable is a bit of a distraction. John Kabat-Zinn, one of the people who brought mindfulness from the East into Western medicine, he defines mindfulness as mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. It's a little bit too much to kind of hold in your mind in one go, but the paying attention bit is important, because if we kind of go into a lovely, dreamy, kind of dreamlike fugue or whatever, daydream, mind wander, then we're not paying attention. And what our minds tend to do is just sort of tip into they tend towards the negative. So, that kind of inner critic that sort of goes I'm not that comfortable, or I'm no good at this, or I'm not enough, or any of that stuff. We're not particularly kind to ourselves. which then tips into the sort of the non-judgmentally, because we're all high achievers. So you'll tend to kind of, I'm sure, you'll approach meditation the same way that you'd approach anything else, which is, I want to be really good at it and I want to see results. That's the way of ensuring that you get nowhere with it. Because what we're aiming to do with meditation is sort of let go of effort. If you like, there's a little effort. The little effort is just paying attention. But we're trying to let go of everything else, let go of our rational thinking, analytical mind, the bit of you that wants to judge and analyze and label things. So we want to think less and feel more. And if we can achieve that over the next 25 minutes, I'll be delighted. If you've still got your eyes open, then you're looking at a shower. If you've got them closed, then you could just imagine one. But the next time you're in the shower, you might like to ask yourself the question, am I in the shower? Kind of stupid question, right? You obviously are, but 9 times out of 10, or maybe more, 99 out of 100, you're not in the shower, you're in the meeting that hasn't happened yet, you're in a conversation that didn't go your way, you're planning your next holiday. It's really quite rare that we're just standing there feeling the water on our skin. Now, were we to kind of just trip through life, kind of feeling the water on our skin, I'd posit that you'd be extremely happy people who achieve just about nothing other than that you may not even, achieve feeding yourself or, particularly getting anywhere. So there is a balance between sort of feeling the water in your skin and actually just being out there in the world and getting shit done. But we are bad at this and we want to bring more of it into our lives. And if we can do that, then what you'll find is that you do start to feel more joyful, more calm, more focused. You haven't changed a thing, you're just paying more attention. So that's enough kind of theory and chat from me. Please close your eyes and get as comfy as you can. Put your feet up or put them on the ground, whatever feels good. And we're just going to start by taking a deep breath. You notice a trend there, it's always the breath. Just see how deep you can send it. The slower you go, the deeper that breath will. And breathe out in your own time. And over the next couple of breaths, just taking them at your own speed, a nice and slow speed, just start to notice where you're carrying tension in your body. So we're all sort of moving around on autopilot all the time, so we're not particularly great at noticing until feelings get particularly acute. So just take a little moment to notice where it is for you. Is it the back of your neck? Is it your temples? Are you clenching your jaw? Are you hunching your shoulders? And when you find some tension, you could just see if you can give it permission to relax. So the beauty of this is we're, for what it's worth, gaming our nervous system. Were you to be truly relaxed, your body would relax, your thoughts would become slower, quieter. But our brain doesn't really differentiate in which order that happens. So in the same way you can fake a smile and actually feel happier, we can relax our shoulders, relax our backs, relax our foreheads and temples, and our minds get the signal that we're obviously feeling pretty safe, pretty relaxed, that it's time to come off DEFCON 3, leave the intensity of the meeting we've just had behind or the expectations of what's to come, and just allow ourselves to be present in the moment. Now, mindfulness, although we've already experienced it, also involves, like I say, staying attentive. So if you float off to like a Himalayan mountain or tropical rainforest or beach, then you've done a good job of escaping and relaxing, but you haven't really particularly developed any skills for sort of being in the world that you actually live in. What we want to do is become more comfortable exactly where we are, without having to create any special conditions for it. So let's just bring our attention to the sounds around us. The comings and goings of colleagues outside the room. The noisy kitchen, the rattling air conditioning unit. The sound of your own breathing. What we want to do is just bring a lovely kind of wide open attention to the whole symphony of sound. And the sounds themselves, not the thoughts or judgments we have about the sounds. Not whether we like them or dislike them, or whether it is indeed a fault with the AC, but rather just the raw sensation, the sounds themselves. So we're just going to do that for a few moments. Just noticing how that soundscape shifts and changes. And then, keeping your eyes closed, I want you to drift your attention to your sense of vision, which hasn't gone anywhere. So just notice, is it just entirely dark behind your eyelids? Or is there some light, some color in the darkness? And again, your rational mind will know that some of that is just the light filtering through your eyelids. But we just want to attend to the changing sensation itself. Perhaps notice if there's static or fuzz or imagery, and if it's shifting and changing from one moment to the next. Just like the sounds around us, these are all just events in our consciousness. All we're doing is like tuning an old-fashioned radio set, trying to get a clearer signal on what we were already aware of. Excuse me. And then let's do the same for your sense of touch. For pressure, temperature, the coolness or warmth of the air on your skin, the pressure of your body as it comes into contact with the seat or cushion or ground. The weight of one body part on top of another, your hands in your lap, your head on top of your neck. And again, notice how that shifts and changes from moment to moment. I like my watery metaphors, so we're going to go from a shower to an iceberg floating in an ocean, which I want you to imagine. And as we do it, you can start to shift your attention to your physical sensations. Perhaps just starting at the soles of your feet and drifting your attention up to the crown of your head. Just noticing any sensations. Not the labels, but the sensations themselves. For instance, is the left toe of your, big toe of your left foot, is it warm or cool? Is it tingling or numb? And if it's painful, is it sharp or dull? See, we're trying to get a more nuanced picture of what's going on in our bodies, because it's all affecting us on one level or another. So you can't do this too slowly, but while you drift your attention up a little bit like an old-fashioned scanner, picture this iceberg floating in front of you in the sea. Now you can clearly see the ice that's protruding above the water. The sun, the sky, the dark water that it's floating in. And you're aware that there's more of the iceberg beneath the surface. But you couldn't tell me its size, shape, colour, particularities, because it's obscured. The part of the iceberg we can see is, and the scene it's in, is like our conscious awareness. It's whatever's top of mind, right in front of you, kind of above the threshold, so you're absolutely conscious of it. And your attention is like your eyes being caught by flashes of light on the iceberg itself, constantly shifting and moving, always going to the most interesting thing in the scenery, the most important or urgent seeming thing in your consciousness. What we're aiming to do is bring a little more attention to the part of the iceberg that's beneath the water. Call it your unconscious or subconscious, it's not important, but it's every physical sensation that your body is sensing, but that perhaps isn't over the threshold of you noticing it yet. It's the sensation of one toe against another that you weren't paying attention to. It's the sounds around you that are sort of beneath the level of you paying any attention to them. But all of that iceberg is affecting us nonetheless. And so every time we bring our attention to our sensations, the sounds and senses, or indeed our thoughts, we are lifting a little bit more of that iceberg just up out of the water. Where we want to get to is it's floating a few inches above the water so that we can see it from all sides, we've got a clearer picture of what's already happening. And with that clearer picture, we can then start to act more wisely. With absolutely no effort at all, we can see the most sensible path around or under that iceberg. We might decide just to stay where we are. But we're no longer having to worry about what's beneath the surface. That's where we want to get to with anxious thoughts, depressive moods. We want to allow them to express themselves clearly right in front of us, rather than doing what we all do, which is suppressing them, shoving them under the rug, blocking them out, or any number of other coping strategies, distracting ourselves. What we want to do is just experience the thought or the sensation clearly, and then let it go. So if you got to the top of your head and you're kind of wondering what to do next, just briefly allow yourself to feel all of your physical sensations at once. From head to toe, the raw sensations, a bit like a galaxy of stars, just points of sensation, shifting and changing, blinking in and out of existence. So you might know your physiology very well, or even the name of every bone or sinew in your body. But for now, we're just interested in what you can feel with your eyes closed. And I should add, if on this little journey you've discovered that your shoulder is tense, or you're tensing your stomach or brow or jaw, now's another opportunity just to allow that to relax, or even take a stretch. A lot of people kind of come into mindfulness and think it's all about sitting very still. It's kind of maybe where we want to get to, but the monks who are sitting there for 8 hours at a time on a cold stone floor, they're not comfortable. They haven't transcended pain. They've just changed their relationship with it. Same pain, suffering less. That's what we want to do here. So we're going to shift our attention to our thoughts. Your individual thoughts as they arrive in your mind. Now, I'm guessing you identify with your thoughts a lot more closely than you do with the sounds around you. But they're all just events in our consciousness. They arise and then they fall away again. You might feel like you are your thoughts, but you're not really in control of them. You don't choose to have a thought. The thought just bubbles up like a bubble liberating itself from the bottom of a glass of water. The mistake we make is identifying so closely with the thoughts that we kind of think that is us. So if we're having disturbing or anxious thoughts, then that is our reality. The trick is to treat them just like the sounds or physical sensations you're feeling, simply as mental events that will, in all likelihood, just like every physical sensation you've ever felt, go away again, often all of their own accord. Now, we don't want to get lost in our thoughts, so we use our breath as a tool. So what I want you to do is just take a hand and put it on the part of your body where you feel your breath most clearly. Perhaps it's your chest or stomach. Perhaps it's just beneath your nose. You feel the air flowing past your neck. But what we're aiming to do is just to physically connect with the sensation of breathing. So we're not interested in what breathing means to you, whether it's oxygenated, hopefully it is, whether it's fast or slow or shallow or light. We're just going to let it do its own thing and just use it as a little tether for our attention so that we can notice each time our attention wanders off. So see if you can notice the way your breath feels at the start, middle, and end of a breath. And whether there's a gap before it flows back out. And we're just attending to our body, that point just beneath your fingertips as it rises and falls. Nothing else is meant to be happening. There's nothing you need to do. We're practicing just being with the moment, not having to do anything about it. And each time a thought comes along, or some distraction, maybe it's my voice, just see if you can notice the judgment that follows it. Like, I'm bored, this is a waste of time, I'm too busy-minded, it's not for me, or I wish I'd eaten before the session. Whatever your thought is, just drop that judgment. Just allow the thought to dissipate by bringing your attention back to your breath. That's the practice. Just drifting between where you've decided to put your attention and where your attention's gone. And we're going to go back to that ocean while we do this. This time there's no iceberg in sight. You just picture an ocean stretching out in front of you, as far as the eye can see. Now the surface of the ocean is constantly interacting with the elements, with the outside world. So it's constantly in motion. Sometimes the waves are 100 foot tall, sometimes they're imperceptibly small, but it's shifting and changing. There's never an entirely still moment on the ocean. When you're up there amongst the waves, it can feel pretty hectic as you're being bashed around. No sooner had you recovered from one wave than another one's arrived. We're not very good at predicting which direction they're even coming from. One minute you're in a peak, the next you're in a trough. That's like our mental experience. Our minds are never at rest. They're constantly assailed by thoughts, external stresses, the outside world intruding upon our inner world. And even when we're in a sort of spa-like state, our minds are perfectly capable of tending towards anxiety, stimulating themselves. Those are the waves. Each distraction that comes along is simply another wave arriving. And they're going to keep on coming. If we dive down just 2-3 meters from the surface, the water is relatively still, serene, quiet. It's a deeper blue. We also have the ability to feel like that. It's pretty unaffected by the waves above. It's the space between your thoughts. It's the space between your breaths. It's the moments when you're just feeling something rather than thinking about it. So when you have the feeling of just breathtaking beauty as you see a sunset or a beautiful person in front of you or a painting, it's the bit of you that just knows you're awake, or knows you're alive without having to think about that in a rational sense. And it's kind of timeless, and it's what we're trying to connect with every time we practice this. So meditation doesn't feel like, it might feel like a series of dives where you just got down to that lovely still place and then the instructor said something again, or you had another thought, you had a physical sensation. And the second anyway that you notice that you're in that lovely still place, you've bobbed back up to the surface, you're back amongst the waves. So the practice isn't really seeing how long you can stay underwater for. It's simply moving between those two states, noticing each wave as it comes along, and then deliberately bringing your attention back to your breath, back to the present moment. By doing this, we're reinforcing a neural pathway that is really very underused. We're all very addicted to doing, and we're not very good at just being. We want to have this because this is the ability to focus on things and people that matter to you. It's the ability to be there in a conversation when you're listening to the other person, rather than just waiting for the gap so you can reply. And it's what we could all do with a little bit more of in our lives. So we're going to start to come back into the room, not that you left it, hopefully, by taking another nice, slow, deep breath, just seeing how deep you can send it, and just letting that go. And we'll take another deep breath, this time just letting it go with a sigh. Any tension in your body, just letting it flow out of you. Leaving it on the seat, leaving it in the room. And start to notice the sensations in your body, this time all at once. And the sounds around you. The temperature, the pressure of your body where it meets the ground or the cushion. And when you like, you can start to gently blink open your eyes. So that was 20 minutes under the shower, under the ocean. May have either, depending on your particular makeup, felt like an absolute eternity, like a torture, or like it just flashed straight past. Whichever one of those you were, don't worry about that. It's not really so important how you feel during the meditation. It's not even a relaxation technique. What we're aiming for is that however we feel after it's done. You will look very calm. Come and speak to me afterwards if you're not, if you're more anxious. That can happen because we're actually paying more attention to the contents of our minds rather than trying to escape it. So it can be a little bit of a roller coaster where it's not like you just get better and better at doing this. But the trend will be that you do find that you're more able to sort of slow your thoughts a bit, be more present, and hopefully that's what you get out of this. The real benefits, the science, comes from doing it on the regular, building up a bit of a practice. Could just be 1 minute a day. Ideally, it would be 20. I'm not prescriptive. That's when you start to kind of actually rewire your brain, and some of those more profound physical changes or physiological changes. But you can also use it very tactically. When you do know you've got a stressful meeting or presentation coming up, or family gathering that, let's face it, aren't always the most relaxed. And just take a moment wherever you are to slow down and take a breath. Notice the colours around you and the sounds, whatever's going on in your body. And you will find that you are then more present, more calm, more focused, more able to cope with those waves. So thank you so much, everyone. If anyone has questions, we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the usual channels, Levitate London. See if you can carry a little bit of this into your day or week to come. And the trick is just, like I say, taking the occasional breath. Noticing that those waves are going to keep on coming. Some of them will be very stressful, but you're not the waves, you're the whole ocean. So thank you very much.